On April 28th, China's Ministry of State Security published an article titled, "Inciting Lying Flat. They're so busy their feet barely touch the ground." The article's subheading was, "Beware the hidden hand behind lying flat rhetoric." The ministry claimed that foreign organizations are funding lying flat influencers to mass-produce short videos promoting the idea that lying flat is justice, systematically brainwashing Chinese youth into adopting this mindset. After the article was published, people laughed. Some joked, "Please, government, assign me a good job and expose the conspiracy of foreign forces in one fell swoop." Others said, "Who's really lying flat? It's the civil servants who are lying flat. If we all lie flat, who's going to support them?" The term lying flat isn't even new anymore, but this is the first time we've seen it labeled as the work of foreign forces. The thing is, while they accuse others of lying flat, Xi Jinping himself is lying flat too. Hello everyone, this is Wei Yu, Watching the World, and I'm Chen Wei Yu. Today we're going to talk about the connection between lying flat and foreign forces. My favorite writer, Brother Big Eyes Li Chengpeng, even made a special post discussing the relationship between the two. He pointed out, straight to the heart of the matter, why the great, glorious, and correct party is so afraid of lying flat. I'll share more about that with you in a bit. Actually, the whole of China is lying flat. Even Xi Jinping is lying flat. Just earlier this month, on April 11th, Spanish Prime Minister Sanchez visited Beijing. This was already his third trip to Beijing in 3 years to pay his respects. I don't know if he managed to get a meal out of it, but maybe he's been going so often it's become too frequent. They just don't care that much anymore. This time, he was actually made to wait in his hotel for 3 whole days before Xi Jinping finally met with him. A dignified foreign prime minister waiting in Beijing for 3 full days? Spain really can afford to lose face like that. Anyone can see that this kind of diplomatic arrangement is highly unusual. Making a foreign leader wait can certainly be a way to show a tough stance, a kind of posturing, but making someone wait for 3 days is already bordering on humiliation in terms of diplomatic etiquette. And during those 3 days, Xi Jinping wasn't even busy. His public schedule was completely empty. So where did General Secretary Xi go? There was no official explanation at all. If we analyze this according to the usual practices of the Chinese Communist Party, whenever the top leader's public activities suddenly decrease, either there's a political problem or a health problem, or maybe both. So which do you think it is? Type 3 if you think it's a political issue, or 9 if you think it's a health issue. We've talked many times before about Xi Jinping's health problems, but of course, it doesn't necessarily mean he was out of commission these past few days because of health reasons. Right around the same time Xi was meeting with the Spanish Prime Minister, some analysts noticed an interesting detail. Kai Chi, one of Xi Jinping's most important enforcers within the party, was unusually silent at several key events. And at the same time, there were a series of incidents in Wang Xiaohong and Wang Xishan's strongholds suggesting that Xi's inner circle might be experiencing some kind of internal turmoil. So does Xi Jinping's delayed public appearance mean that, in a sense, he himself is also lying low? Whether or not he's actually lying low, there's no denying that this whole system of lying low is something he created himself. In February 2026, the General Office of the Chinese Communist Party issued a notice with a long title, Notice on Launching Education on Establishing and Practicing the Correct View of Political Achievements Throughout the Party. To put it in plain language, it means Xi Jinping thinks officials aren't doing their jobs properly and wants to launch a campaign to get them back on track. Right after that, on March 1st, the party journal Shu Xi published an article personally signed by Xi Jinping. The title was, Let the Willingness, Courage, and Skill to Take Responsibility Become the Norm. In the article, Xi Jinping personally stated that officials shouldn't just want to hold office without wanting to do the work, shouldn't just want to grab power without wanting to take responsibility, and shouldn't just want to stand out without putting in the effort. He also said that cadres must be willing to take on tough tasks, tackle hard problems, and handle hot potatoes. This might sound bold and impressive, but the problem is that the very thing being called for is what's lacking. Why don't officials want to get things done? Isn't it because Xi Jinping's anti-corruption campaign has triggered a massive purge, making everyone feel insecure? Foreign Policy magazine published an analysis that directly pointed out the core of the issue. Xi Jinping has placed 3 conflicting demands on local officials. These are requirements that are almost impossible to fulfill at the same time. First, strict political obedience. Decisions from the central government must be carried out exactly as they are, with no local modifications allowed. Second, there must be technological upgrades, developing new productive forces, promoting artificial intelligence, and fostering innovation. Third, financial security. You can't spend money recklessly or create risks. Now, anyone with common sense knows that innovation requires taking risks, and taking risks means there's a chance of failure, but failure would violate the third rule. If you prioritize financial security and strictly follow the first rule with no flexibility, it becomes very difficult to achieve the second goal. And if you try to pursue the second goal, you're bound to run into issues with the third. So what happened? Every province and city ended up doing the same thing, pouring into the same high-tech industries, because by doing this, they appeared to be aligned with the central government. Politically, this is the safest move, so repetitive construction and resource waste happen over and over again. Everyone is doing what's safest for their own political career, not what's best for the country. This is institutionalized lying flat. On April 21st, the party's official newspaper, People's Daily, published an article criticizing grassroots officials for always seeking approval from higher-ups and asking for instructions on everything. It said this was a kind of passing the buck upward and a lying flat mentality. But what happened? Grassroots officials openly pushed back. A deputy official who claimed to have worked in a township for 10 years wrote an article titled, "People's Daily, please put away your so-called corrective knife," the article said. "You criticize us for asking for instructions on everything, but has anyone actually given us the authority to make decisions? If those above could just give us clear answers, we wouldn't have to keep asking for instructions over and over." This is extremely rare in the political ecosystem of the Chinese Communist Party, an article that actually dares to talk back to the central authorities. So what does this tell us? It shows that the people are no longer afraid of death, and now even the officials aren't afraid anymore. Going back to that article from the Ministry of State Security, it says that some foreign organization is funding lying flat internet influencers to systematically brainwash Chinese youth. This article caused a chemical reaction between foreign forces and the lying flat movement, and suddenly it sparked a firestorm. But when it comes to Yang Ge and Li Changpeng, I like his essays the most. They're humorous, witty, and cut right to the heart of the matter. This time, he posted several brilliant threads on the X platform. In one of his posts, he wrote, "Everyone is talking about foreign forces, and it reminds me of a bit of history. In April 1920, a young man named Wu Yangkong quietly arrived in Beijing. His profession was journalism, and he was 26 years old at the time. He also had another name, Grigory Naumovich Viginsky. In reality, he was a secret envoy sent by the Vladivostok branch of the Far Eastern Bureau of the Soviet Communist Party. Accompanying him was his wife, Kuznetsova. On the surface, he was in China to set up a news agency, but his real mission was to assess the feasibility of establishing a Far Eastern branch of the Comintern." When Viginsky arrived in Beijing, he met Li Dezhao through a Russian teacher who taught Russian at Peking University. The two had an enthusiastic discussion about founding the party in the Peking University library. Li Dezhao suggested that he go to Shanghai to meet Chen Duxiu. In May, Viginsky met with Chen Duxiu in Shanghai and they immediately hit it off. The Comintern agreed to provide financial support. They began the great undertaking of founding the party in Shanghai. Viginsky quickly got to work, providing funding for magazines like New Youth, establishing a foreign language society, and selecting students to study in the Soviet Union. Among those students were Liu Shaoqi, Ren Bixi, Lo Yainong, and others. At that time, there was a debate about what to name the newly established party. Chen Duxiu wanted to call it the Socialist Party, thinking that calling it the Communist Party would scare too many people away. Li Dezhao, however, insisted on calling it the Communist Party. In the end, Viginsky made the final decision and named it the Communist Party of China, and that's how the party got its name. On July 23, 1921, the first National Congress of the Communist Party of China was held in Shanghai. 13 delegates and 2 Comintern representatives, Maring and Nikolsky, attended. Each delegate's travel expenses, $100 silver, were paid from Comintern funds brought by Comintern funds. And so, a political party that was planned by foreigners, funded by foreigners, named by foreigners, and established according to a foreign model was born. This is the full text of Brother Big Eye's post. I want to ask everyone, how many people know this part of history, that the Chinese Communist Party was established under the decision of foreign forces, and now, 100 years later, the Communist Party steps forward to warn the people to beware of foreign influence? History sometimes really is an endless joke. Why are young people choosing to lie flat? Let me show you a chart. It lists the average annual working hours per person in major countries around the world. Germany is at 1,343 hours, France at 1,500 hours. Japan is at 1,611 hours, the United States at 1,799 hours. Ranking first is China with 2,548 hours, 341 hours more than Mexico, which is in second place. That's 1,205 hours more than Germany, almost 7.5 months of extra work compared to Germans. To put it another way, on average, Chinese people work nearly 7 hours every single day, all 365 days of the year, with no weekends and no holidays. You'd have to work non-stop all year to reach that number. This is the country with the longest working hours in the world, a fact recognized globally. Yet the Ministry of State Security in this country issued a statement accusing its own young people of being incited by foreign forces to lie flat. The numbers speak for themselves. China ranks first in the world for working hours, but its per capita GDP is only 78th. Chinese people work the most, yet their per capita GDP is just 78th in the world. Germans work 1,200 hours less than Chinese people, but their per capita GDP is more than 4 times higher than China's. Even though China has the highest average working hours in the world, the streets are still filled with young people who can't find jobs. College graduates are delivering food, working as couriers, or returning to their hometowns to farm. If they could find suitable jobs, they definitely wouldn't be delivering food. In his post, Big Eye Brother Li Changpeng said, "Why are people afraid of lying flat? Because it's really scary when workers go on strike. Take the large-scale strikes organized before 1949, for example. The Jinghan Railway strike involved about 30,000 workers across the entire line. The May 30th movement, Shanghai General Strike, and the Canton Hong Kong strike lasted as long as 16 months, with over 250,000 people participating. In 1922, the Hong Kong Seamen's strike lasted 56 days, involving 30,000 people. The Anyang coal miners' strike saw about 17,000 workers go on a full strike, with the slogan, 'We used to be beasts of burden, now we want to be human.' Take a look at that slogan. It already existed before, and it was quite impactful. The government at the time wasn't just lying flat. Rather, it was preparing for the next stage. Lenin clearly defined strikes and sabotage as ongoing, phased, revolutionary tools. During the revolution, there was a general strike across all of Russia, involving about 2.5 million workers. Then they began occupying railways, post offices, and telegraph stations, which led to a complete paralysis of the government. So what happened next? They organized combat groups specifically to rob banks and raise party funds. When Stalin was young, he personally took part in several raids on banks to get funds. During the Weimar period, the Communist Party staged the Spartacist uprising in 1919. They seized power by force, and at the same time organized strikes among workers in Hamburg and Berlin, sabotaging railways and communication facilities. In this regard, the party was truly experienced, so that's why they were firmly opposed to just lying flat and doing nothing. These words really cut to the core. The Chinese Communist Party understands the power of lying flat better than anyone, because that's exactly how they rose to power themselves. They know very well that when workers stop producing, when farmers stop farming, when students stop studying, and when tax revenues start to dry up, no government can keep running for long. The CCP's rule is built on a constant transfusion. The people's labor, consumption, reputation, and taxes are the lifeblood of this system, and lying flat is like cutting off the blood supply. So the CCP isn't afraid of you protesting in the streets, because if you do, they can just send in the police. They're not afraid of you cursing them out either. They can just delete your posts. But what the CCP really fears is you lying flat. Doing nothing at all, because if you don't do anything, you can't be arrested. If you don't consume, you can't be prosecuted. If you don't have kids, you can't be forced to comply. As one netizen put it well, lying flat is basically the same as going on strike. The more people who join in, the harder it is for the machinery of authoritarian rule to keep running smoothly. So don't underestimate how much damage lying flat can do to them. Now they're getting desperate and starting to threaten the people. That just goes to show that lying flat has really hit them where it hurts. If everyone lies flat, it's basically the same as a nationwide strike. Their authoritarian machine would completely grind to a halt and bleed out until it dies. Everyone lies flat, peaceful democratic transition. What do you all think of this slogan? Everyone lies flat, peaceful democratic transition. Do you think what he said makes sense? If you agree with him, please give a like. Li Changpeng also said something else that really nailed the mentality of those in power. Some friends pointed out that lying flat and going on strike are still different. I have no job to go to, while they have jobs but choose not to go. Their thinking just isn't keeping up. This is still using the pitiful mindset of the ruled to try to guess what the rulers are thinking. From the ruler's godlike perspective, everyone down below looks the same. So many people not going to work, production can't get off the ground, and they're all potential rebels. Back in the day, that's exactly what I did. Even if they don't actually want to rebel, there must be some force behind them, egging them on to revolt. From their point of view, there's no difference at all. This is exactly the logic behind that article from the Ministry of State Security. In the eyes of those in power, whether you refuse to work or simply have no job to go to, both are seen as threats. The first is active resistance, while the second is a failure of the system. Both undermine the legitimacy of their rule. By labeling you as someone brainwashed by foreign forces, they kill two birds with one stone. They divert attention and also lay the groundwork for possible future crackdowns. It also provides a legal basis for future actions. The Ministry of State Security warns about foreign interference, but can't answer the simplest question. If young people in China had no worries about food and clothing, had jobs with dignity, could afford to buy homes, could afford to raise children, and could see a future for themselves, would they still be incited by foreign organizations to lie flat?